Yes, it is. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really, I love, I'm stimulated by your information, by your willingness to just get in there and do something and plow through and make things happen. But I really, honest to God, want to know your heart and soul in this,
Well,
your
for me,
motivation.
the hardest thing, I think, I mean, it certainly was very meaningful to me to finally understand how separated from Earth um, people are. I don't necessarily feel that, but I also haven't really focused on made that a huge priority. I mean, it's something that sort of flows naturally for me. I'm in gratitude all the time. I talk to everything. I'm sensitive to the pain of other plants and animals. I, in fact, one of the things that I do, trees often have spirits, and when we cut them down, the spirit does not understand the process, and it's very shocking and really horrible for them, especially if it's a really healthy blooming tree and then somebody just decides it doesn't belong there. It's just outside of their understanding of why that would happen,
May,
and
may
it's really hard.
may I share with you an incident in my own life that you're
Mhm,
speaking of?
mhm.
I bought a house across from a park in Indianapolis on Brookside Parkway. I lived on Brookside Parkway. That means it was a parkway. The entire the entire road was lined with mature trees. The city made a decision catering to investors in the city to turn that park into a overflow basin for a 100-year flood that might happen sometime. And out my front door, bulldozer
Oh,
ripping out of the earth 85 trees in a row. Do you know what that sound was? The
oh, yeah.
sound of an uprooted tree like that. I went across the street and was beating on the man's chest, crying. Don't do, I felt like a Holocaust.
Yeah.
And he was so gentle and kind. But yeah, but I
So,
still feel that.
so let me tell you what I did when I was faced with a very similar thing. There were, I think, 65, um, the name just went out of my head, 65 trees that had been there for over 100 and 150 years that they decided. So I went to each tree and told it what was happening. And I carried a stone for each tree. And I told it had a choice. It could stay where it was, or if it wanted to come with me, I would find another similar tree for it to spend some time with as it transitioned. And I put it in, and there was a stone there, and I would wait until the spirit was in the stone. And then I carried all the stones and put them in front of other trees that had also agreed to accept that spirit, so that they had a way of leaving their physical body without the pain of all of that. Um, and I will tell you, um, that other trees of that species in that area actually bowed to me when I went by after this.
Yes, I understand that.
They knew. And I've been doing the same thing here. And what I've discovered actually is that the species are really different. Their subtle bodies are different. but I just can't stand to see another being taken down that way with absolutely no thought or consideration or exchange. I mean, it's just so rude.
by,
It's just
by
so,
unconscious action.
and people have just like no sensibility about that, and they cut trees down for absolutely no reason. There was a beautiful blue spruce down the street that was cut down just a few weeks ago, and when I saw them, I knew what was happening. So I just went and I said, come. I didn't give her a choice. I said, come with me, and she trusted me enough to do that. And then I explained what was happening. And it's just, there was a tree in the backyard down the alley that was just lovely. It was an elm. It was just beautiful. It had been there 50 or 100 years. I mean, it was a really big stump, and they cut her down, and she would not leave. She would not. She was just stunned. She was in grief. She didn't want to leave, and she didn't. But I mean, she's going to bear that for a long time because she couldn't let go. And so it's going to be very, very hard for her.
Who's the
Yeah.
tree?
I'm sorry?
The tree, you're referring to her as a tree or as a person?
The spirit in the tree was a her. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, that's how I live, but I also see how distant people are. And so for me, the really key piece, the shift that has to happen is we have to become more into our relationship with the other life around us and more considerate. If we can make that shift, then everything else we'll figure out, and we'll know how to figure out to be congruent. But I don't know how to help people into that space, frankly. But my hope is,
you have to go there first.
well, my hope is with this network that there will be enough that I can bring stories and other people who share this to help people.
I mean, here and now, with Gayla, I'd love if she wants to be part of this dialogue, because that's the purpose. I mean, because then we're doing it. We're not having an interview. We're having a dialogue with Gayla. Yes? Are you willing?
Yes.
Because we're making it up.
Yeah. I know.
We're going by the seed of our spirit.
Yeah.
So this is Annie Alba. And Annie, can I ask you about your name? Because I've been curious for a long time.
Anything.
Yeah.
Ani Ahavah. Okay, I lived in Israel for 2 years on what I refer to as a honeymoon with Jesus. I was there for 2 years. I went everywhere he was. It's like the communion. I realized how off the American church is from who Jesus is.
Mhm.
And it's the same difference now between the mechanistic society and the living earth, living society, And anyway, I studied Hebrew. Ani is I am.
Okay.
Ahavah is love. Ani Ahavah. I am love, and I love it when people say that name because they're speaking a truth about themselves. I am love, because each of us is, because
Right.
we're life, and life is love.
Yeah. Yeah.
My family name is Jackie Martin.
Ah.
And I'm starting to use that more. I find myself doing, not publicly so much, but like at Starbucks and in restaurant, and because I'm rekindling my ancestral memory. It's like from the infinite perspective that I hold most of the time. I am in an 8-month journey of rekindling my ancestral memory, which had me bouncing off the walls until I connected with my mother and my father, who both took their own lives.
Mm.
And then back through to the papal bull of 1492 that told the explorers to go and take over whatever land they came to.
Right.
And
The doctrine of discovery.
people, convert them or kill them. Didn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
But annex the land.
Yeah.
And then seeing with George Floyd, watching that, and the white systemic caste system that we still live in, where we have layers, the ones on top that make, same thing. And it's like, okay, we can't do that. None of that anymore. No, it's done. It's done, because we're learning about life. We're learning about who we are as life.
Yeah.
That this is a self-generating reality in which we live, and life is living us. And it's about living in process, not in mechanistic, role specific transactional interaction stuff. We're not going to live like that. We can't, it's not sustainable. So
talk more about autopoiesis. I know it's something that you love dearly.
I love that word. And I'm learning more about it from Jeremy Lent, Elizabeth Touris, Lynn Margulies.
Yes.
The self-making, the self-generating, the self-renewing capacity of biology, which we are part of as nature. We're nature. We're autopoietic. I'm a living system. Da, da, da. I'm a living system. And because of that, in my operational self-maintaining my own components, I'm autonomous. In relationship with my environment, I am totally interdependent with everything, with everyone. It's like Robin Kimmerer said, humanity is not at the top of the pyramid, that we're a member in a circle, in a democracy of species governed by the law of interdependence.
Well, in truth, autopoiesis is how we create that interdependence. It's our willingness.
We don't create it.
To
we
be
are a creation of it. We're a creation of it.
Well, we manage ourselves to be in relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it's all about, is everybody manages their relationship to themselves to be in relationship.
That's
And
right.
when we forget to manage ourselves to be in relationship, that's when we do all sorts of nasty things to ourselves and the rest of the planet.
When we let other people manage us.
Or believe we don't have agency, or any one of a number of other traps that we get caught in.
Gayla, what do you have to say about all this?
Well, otherwise we decide that we're not going to take a stand, that we just step out and it's not my problem, somebody else is going to deal with it. And that's gotten us the situation we're in now. And so, your emphasis on interdependence is critical. And there's so many people that don't even believe that, that we have a big job ahead.
Yeah, and a day at a time, an unfolding moment at a time, as life in process. That's all we need. We have what we need.
And modeling. I mean, I think that's what we do, is model and be willing to just step out and be who we are and not be ashamed or hide. That's one of the key things now.
And it really does take some courage and faith in yourself. Faith in yourself as life, as a living system.
Mhm.
that
So how did you get into living systems? What was the point in your path where that became such a an important part? Oops. Go ahead.
a friend of mine gave Eileen Workman and I a small grant in sacred economics because I knew that was what was the main thing that was wrong, our economic system,
Mhm.
our transactional, money exchange kind of stuff. And I went to a 100-acre redwood forest alone for 3.5 months in a little log cabin with my little dog, 20 minutes from the closest town where no street lights, no nothing. And I was just there every day, every morning for 3.5 months, just the sun coming up and going down, the cycle, the earth rotating on her axis. I mean, I could feel it. I wasn't comfortable there, and I didn't feel like I belonged there until I realized I make dirt. When I die, I make dirt. That's my contribution to the earth.
Yes.
The rest of it, I don't know, consciousness about evolving humanity, starting with myself. But I came away from there with mycelium as my mentor. As mycelium is underground to connect every living thing with each other and extend the nutrients to the ends of the earth. So I want to be in cyberspace, like a mycelial thread, connecting people and extending nutrients. And studying autopoiesis and studying symbiosis and the evolution of the earth. I mean, I've been a student of evolution since 1995 with Barbara Marx Hubbard. The evolution of the earth to this moment of crisis where we're due for a jump to a higher order. And this is the generation of that. We're the ones who get to participate in that jump, to help that jump to happen by being life-centric.
Yeah, I think life-centric, we're going to have a whole month on centering for just that reason, really exploring how we make things other than life important and what the impacts and consequences of that are. So
I would hope that's what
it's
this,
huge.
I would hope what this network, living regeneratively, is.
It's a test.
Yeah,
You say it, you can belong.
that's
Yeah, right. Pretty soon you'll
But
just
yes.
call it LR, Catherine.
For me, the regeneration piece is just euphoric. I mean, we're, especially as women, we're about bringing life in. We're about making kids happy and productive. And so there's a whole part of us, I think, that is really hardwired to evoke life and to sustain life and to make life thrive. So I just feel this is such a calling for us to really come out as who we are. And really begin to look around us and see what's not working and then help it thrive, to be more sensitive to what everything is needed.
Buckminster Fuller said, don't try to change existing systems that don't work.
Right.
I'm not doing that, but
Build a new one.
Right.
Yes, but we do have to build a new one, but we have to be conscious of life and build it with that consciousness, or we're going to repeat the old thing. I mean, that's really what the difference
No,
is.
we're not trying
is
to fix
no.
something that doesn't work. We're not
No,
trying to fix something that
No.
doesn't work.
but when you see that the life around you is not happy, you can do what you can to make it happy, and you must actually. I mean, that's exciting. I mean, you don't live in a house full of houseplants that are dying. You want them happy and you want them happy outside too.
To develop a relationship with them.
That's right. That's right. That's why I talk about earthworms, that look at the earthworms where you are. And if they're really skinny, then they're not happy. So now it's your job to figure out how to make them thrive. So
Well,
it's hands in the dirt. It's really putting nutrients back into the soil, not poisoning them, all of that kind of stuff. But that's just surface stuff. As you begin to really pay attention to the earthworms and pay attention to how the land around you is flourishing, then you just become conscious of a lot more things. It really sensitizes you to the life around you.
could I ask both of you a question?
Mhm.
Sure.
To what extent are you fully expressed as who you truly are?
I don't know that anybody is completely, but we keep trying. We keep working on it.
Good.
And be
That is-
willing, like Catherine said, to step out, and that's, it's like, okay, if no, I don't see anybody else doing it. So I guess that's me. And just being willing to be, oh, look at her. Look what she's doing. She's weird, but maybe somebody will listen.
Well, and that's part of being regenerative, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, that is how we thrive, is by being essentially ourselves, authentically us.
Yeah.
And so giving permission to others and by modeling that is one way that we can make that happen.
Well, what is your message to people, essentially?
Well, mine is love the earth, love the whole creation, and start acting like you really did.
Oh,
And I think we have to love ourselves to get there.
And we're
I
part of
think
it.
that is
I agree.
really a really big part of it. I
yeah.
I think so much of the separation really comes from kids being raised as full of no's, to not do this and not be that, and that creates a separation because the sensitivity they're born with is at odds with that. They want to do things, they see things that aren't right. I think this is one of the big problems we have with teenagers who are coming out of the cocoon of home and being asked to go into the world, and they look around and they go, but I don't want to do that.
Nobody,
I don't want to be like that. And it's just so painful. So we have suicides and all sorts of acting out as kids try and grapple with how to be different from how they think they should be or feel they should be, because the society and their parents, everybody around them, is asking them to be different and to not pay attention to their own pain and their own hurt and all of that. So, I mean, yeah, like you said, Gayla, we have a lot of work to do.
I'm aware that most stores I go into or interactions in the public I have, it's role to role.
Mhm.
It's defined by business, or institution. Everything is kind of institutionalized, and you're relating to this person according to your role, your business role, your institutional role, your money
It
transaction.
doesn't have to be that way, though.
It doesn't.
And I find that people of color in particular are much less likely to do that.
Yes, ma'am.
I had a wonderful exchange with a Verizon employee yesterday, and we talked about our Thanksgiving dinners and who's coming and what we're baking and all of that kind of stuff. And in the meantime, she got done what I needed to have done, and but it wasn't the focus of our time together. It was just what we did, but we exchanged a lot more. Yeah, yeah,
That's it. That's
Yeah.
basically it.
yeah,
We can all do that.
yeah.
It's
Good point.
different.
Good point. Mhm.
So, Ani, how do you feel your understanding of systems expands your capacity to do that?
Say it again, please.
How do you feel that your understanding of living systems expands your capacity to basically be human?
I'm aware of myself as alive. I'm aware of myself as life itself. I'm aware that my biology, like Joanna Macy says, consciousness is a local phenomenon. So between my senses and my brain and my environment, it's a new moment. It's a new day. It's like life is lifing. It's like it's all new all of the time. My identity, I have an autopoetic identity. I mean, Ahavah, Jackie Martin, whatever. I'm lifing. And cultivating, expressing myself in a way that may be helpful to others to be liberated into the same freedom.
Yeah, it's there's something about lifing that is joyous.
Yeah.
And the joy is immediate and real, and it's present. Because you don't feel joy in the past, and now you got it way closer in front of your face. In front. Oops, no, you're just disappearing. It's not gonna work. The background takes it away.
No, The Biology of Wonder.
Okay, is the book Biology of Wonder.
Andreas Weber, The Biology of Wonder, with a foreword by David Abram, whom I love to read. It's aliveness, feeling, and the metamorphosis of science. It's like we had Newtonian mechanistic physics and then quantum physics as the new science. Well, this is that big of a jump to the new biology. The new biology, let's see if there's here. The new biology recognizes feelings as the ground zero of all life processes.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
That's powerful.
Yeah, yeah, because we certainly want to leave the emotions out of the equation.
Right, right.
No, we have to be in our bodies. And I mean, consciousness wise, I mean, I'm still learning, but I do have an infinite perspective, but earthbound biological ancestry. And I mean, I'm a mammal. I'm a mammal with a big brain, according to Elizabeth Saturas. That we're mammals, but without the programming that our ancestors, horse, animals, that we have this big brain that's not programmed. We have free will. And we've been experimenting, and our experiment has failed. So we have to learn to have a different cut, to have a more holistic view of everything as the living planet that we're on, that we're an organism of life, and everything is an emergent property. Everything's emerging all the time into something new. And we can, I don't know, pay attention and learn from it and make decisions according to the cycles of life and the rhythms and the seasons and the new mercies every morning. The dew comes, and let go of things and live in a cycle of light and dark. And I mean, I'm just learning too.
I think part of the cycle is also living and dying. I think part of, especially with Western folks, and so I hear a lot of what you're saying really apply to the Western folks, not so much Indigenous people, which seem to be much more connected.
Absolutely.
And that's been one of the real envies that I've had when I hear Robin Kilmer and some of the others talk about how they were raised as dreams from their ancestors and desired by their ancestors, and how their ancestors care and cherish them and are so delighted that they're there because they're carrying forward. I mean, I wasn't raised with that. I don't know about you, but that wasn't what my parents told me. So that just sets such a frame that you're okay and that you're valued and that you have agency and that you're important and really part of the cycle. I mean, it does so much to put you into the web of life instead of having to protect yourself from it, because you're so different, so bad, so undeserving, so all the other things that we get brought up for. And the shame of that, the pain of that, makes change really difficult for people. I think that's one of the reasons why people say people resist change. I don't really see that we resist change. If we really resist change, marketing would never work. So we are told to change all the time. It's just when it hits those belief systems, when it makes us challenge or have to overcome some of those things where we're required to be in relationship, in concert with other life. And we then have to deal with all that baggage. I think that's where the resistance comes, because we don't feel we deserve that kind of relationship.
About life. Would you be life-centric in your not
Well, that's why I'm trying to explain why I think we aren't life-centric.
No,
That's
but it's about being life-centric. So let's be
right.
Let's be there.
So being life-centric really is understanding your own value. One of the values from the resilient value set is that humans are intrinsic to nature. And people go like, what? How is that possible?
We are nature.
Well, that's what intrinsic means.
Not intrinsic too. It's not, we're central to nature. I mean,
it's not central, but we're important too. We are a living, important, vital piece of nature, or we would not be here. Okay, because that's how she works. That's how she works.
right.
Everything. She always creates the conditions that support life. So we're part of supporting life. We just don't understand how we do that. And we've been so separate, and we're not sensitive. We're not sensitive to how we impact other life. So we don't see what we can do. We don't see that when we bring love and care, that everything flourishes. When we withhold that, everything dies. I mean, it's pretty simple, but we don't see that as our gift and therefore our responsibility.
We would see it if we looked for it.
Yes.
I look for it.
Yeah.
That's all I look for. That's all I try to look for.
Yes.
I I came across a new website this morning, newsociety.com, because that's who published The Biology of Wonder.
Okay.
Newsociety.com, or they this book came from them. And I saw on there indigenomics.
Hmm. I like that.
Indigenomics. It's Native Americans in Canada who are self-organizing. And of course, it's perfect because the indigenous of our country and of the world have a relationship with land and know how to create abundance by what Robin Kimmerer calls a harvest. I forget what she calls it.
Honorable harvest.
Honorable harvest. It's like how to create abundance.
Right.
Mhm.
By
And
taking enough.
our economic system is like a different galaxy away
Yeah.
from that.
It's a big sucking machine.
The indigenomics.
Cool.
Yeah, I was talking to some folks, Indian folks from the reservation in Santa Fe, and they were at the beginning of trying to figure out how to be, how to evoke indigenous-based businesses. And I'm very excited about that. I'm also really scared. I think the surprise to me, and I think the strength, is that from their perspective, you don't decide to go and start a business. You have to be validated by the community. You have to make a case by the community that your business is going to serve them. And so I think thinking through what they want to do is life enhancing, basically. If they can answer those questions and see those connections, will keep them out of some of the traps that we've created in our accretion approach to business. We've done some shifting even among whites with social entrepreneurship, where people are thinking about how the business can solve some of the issues that we have, and that's good. It's a really good start. But the life-centric piece just shifts everything, because, as Ani brought up, the honorable harvest piece, that it's not about making as much as you can. It's about making sufficient and making sure that there's enough left for others. When you start using materials and that kind of stuff, that consciousness just shifts all of that. Yeah.
And donut economics goes the same place and says, it's not how much money you make, it's how much good you do, how many problems you solve, how many people you make happy.
And how you pay attention
all the
to
time.
what you're taking and what you need to give, so that you're balancing both human needs and planet needs. Yeah.
And it's not that you are the one that's doing all these things. It's you allowing yourself to be life itself, doing what it does to regenerate life, to inspire people,
and to keep yourself healthy.
Absolutely.
That's a key piece, which we tend to, especially as women, to forget.
You start there. I have a little a little award, just a little glass thing from the National Association for Family and Community Education that I got for the family community leadership, community-based institutes that I did. And it says, you can never give to anybody what is not inside yourself.
Mhm.
Can't give to anyone what you don't have inside yourself. And so it does start with self, always, always and forever. But it's life that's coming out of everybody.
Well, and that's where honoring your authenticity really, I mean, that's the key to that place. You just got to trust yourself and trust that that is what's real, instead of dismissing ourselves, which we do so often.
And I want to read again, the new biology recognizes feelings,
Yes.
ground zero of all life processes. So it is about being in our bodies, taking care of ourselves and expressing who we are, living who we are. I mean, I don't know a better way to put that right now, but it's being true to yourself. It's loving yourself and being true to ourselves with each other as kin.
Yeah.
As kin, interdependent kin on the earth where we're sharing the land. No matter who owns it, that's a false demarcation. We
Yes.
share this land that gives us life.
You know, we were talking about talking to plants earlier and listening to our environment. And that really means trusting ourselves, because we hear and see things inside ourselves, you know, in our minds, and we dismiss it. Oh, that can't be. Oh, it must be an imagination. Oh, I'm making it up. All these stories we have that allow us to dismiss the communications we're actually getting. So that's where trusting yourself and being aware of your body. You feel in your body the pain of others when they're hurt, you know, and we turn it off, we dismiss it, and we can't. We really need to honor that. We need to recognize that and then respond, not react, but respond to it in a way that nurtures. Yeah.
And you clash with existing systems, existing systemic ways of thinking, institutionalized ways of thinking. I'm clashing by just expressing myself, by desiring more heart-to-heart connection with managers of our apartments. And it's a clash. It's amazing. But it's like, I know them as kin. My heart is open to them. I understand the importance of following that path. Not trying to be right and them wrong or whatever. That will not get us anywhere. And who knows, you know, gotta adjust, adapt as best we can, and still be true to ourselves.
Yeah. I think that's a very fine line. That's a very fine line.
It's a very fine line, and it makes all the difference between life and death. The experience of living or being shut down as a whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So Gayla, I'm interested in like, what's on your front burner in terms of your own emergence?
Well, I'm involved in lots of different groups that are searching for action and ways to further the connection between individuals and the land and the animals, and to try to see, for me, there's so many people out there who are thinking the same way, but we don't connect with them. It's hard to find them. And it's like, how do we make this connection? And I think that's what Catherine's trying to do with this network, is how do we get them together so that they have a bigger and bigger voice, a bigger and bigger opening to people. And I'm working really hard on my local situation, and I think Catherine's doing the same thing too. But I just think, and I just realized when I was writing one of my Christmas cards, which I still do, and said that I was in 5 groups, all of which are serious about action, about the planet and about living together and all of that. That's a lot of people for one person. And I know Catherine knows even more, and you probably do too. So how do we get those all together so that that voice can be heard?
Just keep going. Keep going.
Well, I don't intend to stop, but if there's more better ways, I want to work with Catherine and you to do that, to find the better ways.
Well, we create the path as we walk. That's really, yeah. So
Right.
just,
It's how evolution works. There's muddy pools. Symbiosis takes place in muddy pools. It's messy. It's not clear, but connections are being made, and syntheses.
Must be Latin in there someplace. Synthesis.
Syntheses are happening. I have to share, or what comes up right now is sharing Roberto Assagioli, who created psychosynthesis. Psychosynthesis as a psychological kind of amazing thing, but he talked about the will, and it's not the will like the old Victorian will. He said the will, which is part of our psyche, along with impulse and imagination and intuition and thinking and feeling, and I forget what the other one is. The will directs, regulates, and balances all, and constructively utilizes all of the energies and activities in the human being without repressing any of them. I love that, because it helps me to let go and allow that to happen throughout the day. Sometimes when a lot's coming in and I want a lot to go out, it's like, no, stop. Allow the synthesizing my energies, and not repressing, not trying to control it, allowing the synthesis to take place inside of me as a living system.
So, Ani, how would you define living regeneratively? What does that phrase mean to you? And then how does that connect with your?
That one of the things I learned about evolution is that life evolves with greater complexity.
Right.
And so living regeneratively, as I'm looking at the choices that I have, I choose what feels simple but is more complex. I choose the options that have a little more connectivity, a little more complexity. Now, I feel the inner guidance toward those things, which is as simple as you can get, as essential as you can get. But living regeneratively is definitely making connections. What's the phrase? Making multiple novel connections among formerly separate parts. That's what we're doing on Zoom. That's why COVID has had intentionality to it. Because Zoom is helping us make multiple novel connections among formerly separate parts. And living regeneratively is that. And in terms of humanity, in late adolescence, I learned that maturity is a felt sense of everything interconnected.
Mm.
When I allow myself to become aware of the interconnection of everything that is, there's a peace and like a maturity. It's like something has completed inside of myself. Go ahead.
It's also an emotional place, because when you realize that connection, that's when you can start to feel others' pain. You can start to recognize the impacts of your actions on others. And so it is a highly emotional place to move from not caring, being so focused about your own self and your own survival, to understand you have impacts and that you've created situations for other people and other life that you didn't really intend, but that were still really painful, and that you have sadness and regret over. And facing that, dealing with that, forgiving yourself. I think that's another really big block to the shift, is forgiving ourselves for what we've done. When you really realize what we've done, it's really awesome. And there has to be a place where you can forgive yourself. And, part of that forgiveness is not doing it anymore. You have to change those actions. What are your thoughts?
When the term you used, emotional, is like what came to me, offering instead of that, full of feeling.
Mhm.
Full of feeling. That has a little different connotation, a little different vibe.
Mhm.
Full of feeling rather than being emotional or being in
Yeah.
our emotions. It's just full of feeling.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But so many people don't even recognize they have different emotions. There's a wonderful book that catalogs emotions, which I've got to refine. And there's like hundreds of nuanced emotions in there. And mostly people can recognize maybe 5 or 6 emotions. They don't get the nuances. And the nuances make a really big difference. Just like your word change from emotional to full of feeling
Yeah.
is a shift. It has a whole different, so those words are really important because they really create a whole different understanding of where you are. Not all fear is the same.
I try to cultivate a vocabulary of living systems, or of a vocabulary of nature. I call it an autopoetic. I mean, I've got an autopoetic glossary
There you go.
that I picked up from science that I read, and it helps reframe
Mhm.
into life-centricness, not human emotionality or cultural stuff.
How does that help you? What
Oh,
do you see as the benefit of that?
clarity of mind,
Mm,
understanding that it's far more complex than I would otherwise think, and that I'm responsible mainly for just maintaining myself, keeping myself in balance so that I may be an environment in which other people can thrive.
nice.
Well, I think our culture has, has used the word emotion to punish, and I don't know if the word feeling will, neutralize that, but it might be a good thing to try. But, to me, we're talking about the same thing, but the connotation
Very
is
different.
different because of our culture. And it just shows what Catherine was talking about before, and that is that we are stuck in this culture. And sometimes we say, oh, cripes, I didn't mean that. And we have to recognize it and say, okay, the real meaning behind that, those two words is the same, but our culture has screwed around with it. So they're a little different. And as I said, I don't know if saying feeling is going to help to change that, but I'm willing to try.
It changes my vibration, and that's
Yeah,
everything.
and that's important. Exactly.
No, because
Yeah.
vibration is what it's about.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
raising our vibration as a species to be more coherent and resonant. And language sometimes determines that. Like, oh, you're so emotional. Oh, you are full of feeling. And it's like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one is human centric, culture centric, and one is life centric. I'm just experimenting with everything I say
Yeah.
I mean,
to see
I
if it resonates or not.
It's great. No, it's great to listen to you. I think I've enjoyed it.
well, and emotions are so subtle. And oftentimes when they're subtle, we dismiss them. We don't really pay attention to.
Mhm, mhm.
And so my learning around that came with my cancer, because that came from my anger at my ex-husband for dismissing me when I was trying to express what I felt was truth.
Mhm.
And he played a game with me, which it took me years, just years. In fact, I don't think I saw it until after we were well divorced, that he loved to have intense discussions with me, but he had no intentions of changing his mind. So when we would have this big talk and I would try, and present things and share things and all of that, and he was just like, oh, that's wonderful. No.
Mhm.
And that irritation is what I put in my liver. And so you get enough of that anger and gee, guess what? Your body goes, you don't want to be here anymore. I'm fine with that. I can do that for you.
Well, but that's really important, Catherine, because the world is like that. And they say,
Yes.
we'll be glad to discuss it, but there's no openness there. There is
Right.
not a person there. There is a plexiglass shield that we are
Yep.
bouncing against. And so we have to figure out how to get around that or
Just not
do
deal with that.
something else, go
We need to
elsewhere.
find, yeah, we need to find the other levers in the system that don't feel
Mhm.
that way.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why that's why I feel that the petitioning government and paying attention to government is really not, it's a waste of time. There's just so many barriers there that make it impossible for the humans there to be human. They've got so much pressure not to be. It's really hard.
Right. It's not
So,
impossible though. It's not impossible.
no, and if you find somebody, go for it. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, but it's a pretty personal thing.
But the leaders can't take us where we need to go.
Right.
Government can't take us where we need to go. It's
But
really,
we need to go there. It's not just them going there. We need to go
No.
there.
no, but that's the driving force. The
Yeah.
individual changing their own thinking, their own
Yep.
language, their own attitude. I've had such a crappy attitude. I mean, I'm still working on it, but I'm better. But yeah, because I can, as I wrote in my journal a couple weeks ago, I keep bumping into my white privilege.
Well, it's so infused in our culture that, and that's why white men say, well, I never had any privilege. Look at all these people. It's like, good
I
grief.
just do what I want to do, and I don't have a problem with it.
I know. And language, oh my gosh. It's
Yeah.
it's really, so it's no wonder, Ani, that you bump into it. We bump into it too. You know, I walk into a store and they ask me what I want. You know, I mean, I'm a white woman who looks pretty okay, you know?
I had an incident 2 or 3 weeks ago. The painters are painting the complex, the senior apartments where I live and the family. And it meant I had to bring all of my plants in off of my patio into my little 1-bedroom apartment, and for a whole week. And it's like, so the next day after all this time, I went out, you know, and there was no painters except this one painter who was at the picnic table that we have outside of the community room. And I went up to him and I said, where are the workers? It's like, I've got these plants, blah, 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 and, you know, and he said, at lunch. And the other woman who was with him didn't even look at me. She turned her body away from me while I was ranting and raving about my inconvenience. And of course, when he said at lunch, it hit me that I might have been out of place here. I think I missed something. I said, oh, okay, sure. Well, thank you. Thank you. And I walked back into my building and I said, how white of you. Went upstairs and I sat in my meditation chair and it all came down on me. And I had to go back out
and apologize.
Apologize.
Good for you. Good for you.
She turned around and her face lit up. Because when I was apologizing, I'm saying, I know you know what I mean when I say I'm sorry. I mean, I didn't know how to further express, but I had tears in my eyes because it hurt me to be so arrogant and so self-centered and to speak to somebody like that.
Yeah.
And the energy totally turned around and she and I connected eye to eye and she had a big grin on her face. And I said, I know you understand. And of course she did. She's lived with it her whole life. So I'm happy that happened because it made such an imprint on me. And somebody apologized to them for being an asshole, being so human-centric and white.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what Catherine was saying before too. You have to forgive yourself for
Yeah,
things like
I
that,
could
you
do that.
know, because you're, you know,
I practice.
exactly, exactly. And you took care of it, you know, and I would say that there are people who would do that and then would go away and feel bad and would never do anything about it. So,
Right.
you know, you didn't erase it, but you brought it back to neutral, which was huge, huge. Good job.
We
Good job.
respected them enough.
Thank you. It's our job to do that now.
It is. It
Yeah.
is indeed. Indeed.
To maintain the relationships.
Yeah.
Live with myself. I would have been miserable.
Yeah.
Well, Ani, we're at the end of our time.
All right.
So I'm gonna call us to a close, but I so enjoyed our conversation. And Gayla, it was so wonderful to have you here.
Well, I was
I
glad I
really-
figured it out, Catherine. Thank you.
Very good, very
You
good.
made it very easy for me. Thank you.
Oh, good. That's my intent. Because
I like
it's
this.
pretty easy, actually, once you understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this forum, and it's like, I'd like to do this again and have more people. with this.
Well, that's my intent. That's
Yeah.
my intent, that we'll do it once a week to start, and then hopefully we'll have more people. So it will become much more of a discussion and dialogue. Great.
Thank you very much. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Have a good Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you for paying attention and listening as long as you have. I appreciate your being here.